All right, good afternoon, everyone. This is Kimberly Young. I'm the program coordinator with FCICA, and I will be moderating today's webinar. This program is being recorded, so to maintain the integrity of the recording, all attendees will be muted. The recorded session will be housed on the FCICA Member Center and this education portal, as well as featured on our website and YouTube channel. We've got some more events coming up right after we kick off the new year. We've got another product webinar with Protect All. That will be Thursday, January 3rd. At 11 a.m. The next week, we have another product webinar with Construction Specialties. That'll be Thursday, January 10th at 11 a.m. And both of those you can register for on our website, fcica.com/webinars. We also have our convention coming up, March 26th to 28th in Tucson. That'll be a lot of fun. We have a lot of great educational events coming up for that, and early bird discount will end January 18th, 2019. So make sure you all get registered for that. We also have a special SimTrack webinar coming up also in January. That'll be Thursday, January 17th at 11 a.m., and that'll go into managing the schedule. And we'll have Sherry Porter Nelson, who is one of our new Sims, putting on that educational webinar for us. Right before convention, we'll also have a 3 Days to Sim program. If you're not a Sim yet, you can come down a couple days early to convention and earn your Sim in 3 days. It's a really great program. You can see our first class of Sims here. So if you're having trouble finishing the Sim program online on your own, you can come in and do it with us in person. One last live webinar, we've also got thermoplastic urethane or TPU sheet flooring products. That'll be presented by Graham Capobianco and Jim Cups, and that'll be Thursday, January 31st at 11 a.m. And again, all of these webinars you can sign up for, fcica.com/webinars. For our certified installation managers, this and all FCICA webinars may be credited toward your continuing education requirements for your SIM renewal. Visit the SIM page on our website for renewal details. Any views and opinions expressed in this webinar are those of the presenters and do not necessarily reflect the official views or positions of FCICA. Please excuse this brief pause while I initiate the recording. Welcome to the FCICA Product Webinar Series. We are pleased to have David Altman of Metroflor Corporation with us today to talk about Aspecta. Dave, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Kim. Appreciate the opportunity from the FCICA to talk a little bit today. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and happy holidays to you, in case I forget at the end. Yeah, the topic for today's presentation is resilient flooring and sound ratings, bringing clarity to the market. And I know that there have been some past presentations talking about sound ratings and sound mitigating flooring products for resilient floor covering. But what I wanted to talk a little bit about today was a challenge that we're all facing. And up until maybe the beginning of this calendar year, we didn't hear too much from the flooring contractors about sound mitigation, sound numbers, what does all this mean, et cetera, et cetera. But I think while the resilient flooring category is once again led the industry in terms of percentage of growth, and most of that had to do primarily, or has to do primarily, with the rigid core and the WPC and SPC products. More people are discovering the benefits of resilient flooring. They're moving away from carpet, soft surface flooring, and I think that many of the manufacturers are not only seeing growth in the WPC and SPC type products, but also dry back glued out. We're seeing growth all across the board. And then most of this growth, or a big percentage of this growth, and where there's a lot of opportunity, is in the multifamily and hospitality segments. And historically, carpet does a great job in terms of mitigating sound. So in those types of applications, it hasn't been really that big of a deal, other than with stone, ceramic, hard tile areas. And the building codes also apply to resilient flooring, those building codes. So unfortunately, the challenge I think that everybody has been faced, especially the manufacturers, is there's a huge misunderstanding within our market, and as such, it's become what I call a smoke and mirrors game, or a numbers game. And we get phone calls from architects, design firms, quite often, wanting to know what our IIC and STC numbers are. And we have to train our customer service people to ask questions. If we should say our IIC STC is a 52 and a 53, quite often today, with the requirements of not just the building codes, but the condominium associations, et cetera, they're requiring much higher numbers. So if we say, our number is such and such, then typically what will happen is the architect or whoever's calling on behalf of the architect will say, oh, it doesn't meet my criteria, click. You don't even get a chance to have a discussion. So one of the things that we're trying to do is to ask the questions up front, because it's all about subfloor ceiling assemblies when it comes to resilient floor covering. Resilient material itself typically doesn't provide much mitigating value unless it has an attached pad, et cetera, et cetera. So this presentation was really put together for some of our commercial sales reps internally, and we also use this with some of our distributor reps. And I thought it would be nice to maybe share this with some of the flooring contractors, and it's our attempt to try to help uncover some of the myths to these causing these smoke and mirrors games, and some sort of an attempt to bring some better clarity to the market. Again, I'm getting more and more calls from commercial flooring contractors, especially the commercial flooring contractors that are full service contractors, where they sell, specify, and install the flooring materials. So without further ado, let's move on to the next slide here. Okay, here's a polling slide. And Bill, I think you were going to handle this here.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, everyone should see a polling question number 1 on your screen at this time. It does read, are you a, and your choices are contractor, architect, installer, manufacturer, or other. And as the answers come in here, Dave, it looks like 75% of our audience are contractors and 25 say other. Back to you.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. All right, and we will move on. Okay, so what is sound? The basic physics of sound really is nothing but a vibration that typically will propagate. It's an audible wave pressure that is transmitted through either a solid, a liquid, or a gas. Very simply put. So what's going on with us here? It's not advancing. There we go. All right, in terms of the human physiology aspect of that, it's really just how the human being perceives, how the human being's brain perceives those audible waves. So what are the types of sounds that we are dealing with when it comes to floor covering? There are 2 types, and it's airborne sound and it's impact sound. So the airborne sound is generally caused when a source object vibrates the air around the object, and then that vibration, it just passes through as sound waves. And some examples of that would be a barking dog, I don't know if that sound is coming through, but another example would be a crying baby, for example. Or music, somebody playing music. So in terms of impact sound, that's basically caused when you have an object that comes in contact with another object or an impact, and that impact causes a vibration, which generates the sound waves. And some of those examples would be, a woman walking in stiletto heels, especially if you're down on the first floor and the person walking is on the second floor, that's transmitting through, through the subfloor ceiling assembly above. Could be someone in a shower hearing the water hitting against the tub, or breaking dishes, excuse me. Okay, so I guess the next question is, how are flooring products rated for a sound attenuation? And I don't know if you can see this slide very well. I can't see it too good on my screen here, but basically we have a couple of different test methods. You have sound transmission classification, impact insulation classification, and there's also what we call a delta test. So The shorthand acronyms for these would be STC or FSTC. The F just means field sound transmission classification. That's the airborne noise that we showed just a moment ago, where you have a baby crying or a dog barking. That ASTM test method is E90. The lab, that's the lab test method. The field test method is E336, and the classification method that basically has all the details in terms of how you calculate these numbers, and that's a E413. Some of this may or may not be important to you, but really the most important thing here has to do with the fact that these test methods, the STC and the IIC test methods, are done with an entire configuration. It's just not the flooring material itself. It is a subfloor ceiling assembly, and that could be many different types of subfloor ceiling assemblies. They're not specified in the standard, which there's a lot of confusion there. A lot of folks, whether they be end users especially, are misinformed, and they think that they look at a report or they look at a technical data sheet, and this particular number is that number regardless of where it goes in the house, what floor it is, what the subfloor ceiling assembly is, which is not the case. The only exception would be the Delta sound test. That is basically what the Delta has to do with is it shows that rating shows that the product adds to the assembly in the terms of isolating impact, footfall noise, and that test starts by testing the. Excuse me, I'm getting kind of choked up here. Get a drink of water. That is typically a 6-inch concrete slab, no subfloor ceiling. Put your material on top of that subfloor. You do your impact test, and it is basically giving you the value difference that material adds to that. For example, if you have a 6-inch concrete slab, your IIC values are going to be somewhere around a 28 to 30 ballpark, depending on what lab and what slab it is. You add a material on top of it. If it's a dry back LVT product glued down to a 6-inch concrete slab, no subfloor ceiling assembly, and you end up with a, let's say you have a 28 and then you have a 32, that's a 4-point difference. It's not a complete exact subtraction, or addition. It is all logarithmic, so there is a mathematical formula to dictate that. But basically, what that test does is it allows you to take two different types of products, put them on the exact same substrate, and see which product performs better than the other. So you can actually compare apples to apples. So over the years, I'm not a sound engineer, but I've been in this industry for over 40 years, and I've done a lot of sound testing for several different manufacturers that I work for. I've used the majority of them. There aren't that many out there: Intertech, NGC, Riverbank, etc. We are currently, as a company, Metroflor, we are currently using Intertech. And here's a photo on the left there. That's their main building up in York, Pennsylvania, where they have their test lab. The building on the right is the actual test lab. And I thought it'd be interesting to put these photos into the presentations to give some folks an opportunity that have never been to one. I mean, why would you go to one if you're not in that business of doing the testing? Gives you an indication or an idea what a test lab might look like. Now, you'll notice that building is independent of the main structure. And the main reason for that is because noise, vibration from noise, whether it be impacts or just music or forklifts or what have you, all that can transmit into the building and skew a lot of the results. In fact, you don't want to build these types of sound labs anywhere near railroad tracks. You want to try to keep it out of flight paths as well, because that can distort or create some issues with the results. So you'll notice that was a two-story building, or a tall building, I should say. The photo on the left is the source room. That's the upper room. And what you're seeing right there is a underlayment system. I think it's a 1.0 millimeter polypropylene mitigation, sound mitigating underlayment with a floating floor that's going to be installed on top of that. Excuse me. The photo on the right is the lower room, and that's what we call the receiving room, and that's where they have the microphones, and that picks up any noise that is transmitted through that subfloor ceiling assembly. So this is a photograph from below. Typically what we do is we build the subfloor ceiling assembly, conduct all of our testing over whatever assembly we're testing to, and then if we're going to do any delta testing or testing without a ceiling assembly, then we tear it down and then conduct those tests. So this photo on the left here just shows, removing that ceiling assembly from below. What we have is a 6-inch concrete slab. There's 3.5-inch batt insulation, unfaced, and the resilient channels. And on the right photo, you can see the hose system there with the insulation, the resilient channels, as well as one layer of 5/8-inch drywall. So in terms of equipment that's utilized for sound testing, the photograph on the left here, again, that's the sound source room. That's where all the noises takes place. I don't know if you can see these green circles, but those are the microphones that are set up. And these microphones are actually set up in strategic locations, and they actually move them around to certain different locations within that room during the testing. And that's where they play a lot of very loud noise at a very wide range. The red circle that you see there, that's a tapping machine for doing the IIC testing. And that basically has 5 steel hammers. It's kind of like a pistons or crankshaft with pistons. And when that machine is turned on, those hammers beat on that floor. It's extremely loud. And that is what's used for the impact installation classification test method. The photo on the right here is the receiving room, or the lower room. And again, that's where we have the microphones that's picking up all the noise and recording it, sending it all to the computer, mapping everything out. So the sound ratings, what's causing this confusion in the market today? Well, there's really a whole host of things, and I think the biggest issue is lack of knowledge. What's rarely known is that these FCC and these IIC test methods, they don't specify assembly substrates. So what's being tested is really dictated by whoever's commissioning to do the testing. There are hundreds of different subfloor ceiling assemblies throughout North America. Just think about, you have concrete slab, you have 6-inch, 8-inch, you could have a 4-inch even, with different types of drop ceiling assemblies. It could be 1 layer of 5/8-inch drywall. It could be 2 layers of drywall, and so on and so on. Wood substrates, wood structures. So excuse me one second. I have a terrible cold coming on, so please bear with me. My apologies. So anyway, let's move on to, you have this lack of knowledge plus the lack of information. A lot of manufacturers don't put this information out in their technical data sheets or on their websites along with the assemblies. A lot of times you will just see numbers on their technical data sheet. You'll see maybe a 50 IIC and a 52 STC, or a 65 and a 32, and they don't identify what that subfloor ceiling assembly was. Again, we have a lot of different underlayment products out in the marketplace, and some of those don't list those either. They'll just list a value, and one in particular that comes to mind, I recall seeing not long ago, said a 72 IIC, but it didn't say what that subfloor ceiling assembly was, and it was just a 1 millimeter thick polypropylene or polyethylene system. But at the end of the day, what does that mean? If you don't know what that subfloor ceiling assembly, that whole configuration, it's really meaningless. So it's very rare to see anyone post the actual test reports themselves as well. And you're not seeing that many delta ratings. In my mind, going back, I can recall going back 15 years ago where we started doing a lot of delta testing, thinking that that's really the best way to compare products one to another. You're comparing everything apples to apples. You know exactly what type of a reduction you get in terms of decibels with component A or product A versus product B over the exact same substrate. That started to become a little bit popular probably 8-10 years ago. I think that the market wasn't educated enough about the understanding of how the delta ratings can be used. These tests are extremely expensive, and we spend an absolute fortune every year sound testing all of our products, new competitive products, other alternative systems, just to try to stay on top of the market. And while you're beginning to see more and more educational materials online, you can go online and you can pull up information, but it is still somewhat limited. So you have a lack of knowledge, you have a lack of information, and this basically equates to confusion, and especially on the buyer, the end user, the person buying these products. That a lot of times they're under the impression that these IIC and SPC ratings are just a simple means of comparison. And if you don't know, what the whole assembly consists of, it's very difficult or almost impossible to really understand and to compare apples to apples. So as a result of this, there are a lot of products being sold out in the market, being specified, being sold, buildings built. Then you have a condominium association that may have a specific requirement. It may be a number or a 70 IIC or 68 IIC or what have you, whatever it might be. Products get installed, occupants move in and start getting complaints, and that can also lead to negative reviews and ultimately, in worst case scenario, lawsuits. So as a manufacturer, we're seeing more and more interest from some of the end users and some of the GCs to do some field testing, and we do from time to time commission folks to go out on special large projects and do some field trials, or field testing, I should say, in addition to providing the test reports up front on the front side. So I guess the question is, how do we bring clarity to the market? Who benefits? Really, it's about education, and that education, needs to come from the manufacturer, needs to come from the architects, and needs to come from the underlayment, mitigation companies as well. Primary topics obviously are, what are behind the numbers, because the numbers just don't mean anything without the entire system, and how they've been misapplied. What does it mean for the market, and how the market is slowly changing. And we have set up a pretty good program internally within our organization to kind of help our salespeople that work with our distributor salespeople, that work with the specifiers. And that's what we're trying to do on our end. And again, the reason I've asked, or excuse me a second. The reason I wanted to talk a little bit about this today was I wanted to bring the commercial flooring contractors in the fold, especially the ones that are dealing with the architects and stacking products. So educating, plus the information, informing the market, making sure that we have all of our testing done, which we do have quite a wide range of testing, not only on our Spectra products, but on all of our Metroflor dryback and floating click systems, WPC, SPC products as well. We publish those ratings with the configurations, and not to play in the numbers game, trying to be as transparent as we can with our customers. And we do publish all of our test reports, and if anybody wants copies of the actual test reports, we do provide those to our customers. So, the education plus the information, should bring some more clarity. I don't think this is something that's going to get solved, overnight. This is something that's been going on. I've been dealing with this for probably at least 20 years, but not to this magnitude. And again, it's all has to do with just the popularity of resilient flooring as the main thing. So it's just more opportunity, more people are involved. You didn't see as much of resilient flooring going in multifamily housing or hotels, et cetera, but it's become quite a huge market today. So at the end of the day, hopefully the buyers will benefit. They're having this information. They'll be able to make some better informed decisions. Increase their value of the material that they purchase. Their customers will be much more satisfied, and it certainly brings more trust throughout the industry, whether it's our distributor, whether it's the architects firms that we deal with, the design firms, and even with the flooring contractors. Sorry about that. And what you're seeing here is just a snapshot, and I can't see these on my screen, so I am going to just flip through a printout that I've got here. So what you're looking at here is just one of our technical data sheets, and this is just gives you an example of our Spectify, which is a dry back glue down. And if you look down towards the bottom where it says North American Standards Sound, we list out the different standards, the IIC, the SDC, and the Delta, and we list out the Aspecta 5, plus the Prevail GDP. The Prevail GDP is a 1 millimeter thick glue down, so basically you're looking at a double glue down dry back application here on a 6-inch concrete slab, as well as a 6-inch concrete slab with a drop ceiling assembly. So these reports are also available to anyone that would need those. The next slide is basically the same thing, other than this is our Specta 10, which is a 10 millimeter thick WPC with a pre-attached sound mitigating underlayment on the product. And again, here it lists out, all the details in terms of the subfloor ceiling assemblies and the IBC requirements and the results. Okay, so let's just take a look at some of these sound test reports. I don't want to get too deep into this because these can get extremely deep. But if anyone should ever have a question or is being questioned, and you're seeing numbers where one manufacturer has a similar product to another, but you're seeing some significant IC-STC differences, the values, you may want to request the reports and actually look at the reports and compare them to each other, because they will tell you exactly what you need to know. And I'm not aware of any manufacturer, if you call them and ask them for it, I don't know of any that won't give them to you. I call our competitors all the time. Of course, I know everybody for many years, so we have nothing to hide. Everybody seems to be fairly transparent if you request it. But this particular test report is from NGC, not Intertech. This was one that I was able to pull up. And if you take a look at the first, I think this is page 1 in the report. It will give you some details on the very first page. It'll say test report for who the manufacturer is, who commissioned it, to tell you what the ASTM standard is, and it'll give you a little bit of a description in terms of what the subfloor ceiling assembly is and what the material it is that was being installed on top of it. I don't know if you can see it right here. Another page, and every manufacturer writes their reports a little bit differently, but it's fairly easy to find the information that you're looking for. And I can't see what this one here is. It actually gives you the date and some sort of a summary, but I can't see what that one says at the moment. This page here, again, just gives you more of a description. It will give you significant detail. It will tell you what the product is being commissioned, the product name. It will generally give you the product size, the thickness. It will tell you what the subfloor ceiling assembly is specifically. It will tell you 6-inch concrete. It may say drop ceiling. 3.5-inch pad insulation, 1-layer 5/8 drywall, or 2 layers of drywall, and it will get a little bit more specific details. So if you look at this page here, it will give you every little detail that you could think of in terms of that entire assembly, including the materials being installed on top of it. So if you take this from one product, take it from another product, you look at it, you'll know exactly what you're dealing with. You can compare apples to apples. This page here, you will see, I think this is the IIC that will give you the value on this page here in terms of a number. I can't see what it says here, but it will give you the value right up, I think, right in this area right here. So it'll say IIC, for example, IIC of a 65. And then you go to another page, it will give you the STC value and tell you what that value is as well. So here you go. This one, I think it says 70 on this particular page here. But the whole point to this is that these reports get into a lot of detail, and they will give you exactly the information that you need, that you can compare apples to apples. And we use this all the time. I mean, there isn't a week that goes by that we don't get questions, and we will request to see the actual test report for a competitor product. We will look at ours, we will look at theirs, and then we will point those out. We will sit down with the end customer, go through that with them, and show them the difference, explain the differences between them. So that's really all I had. I wanted to kind of leave a little bit of time open at the end here. If anybody should have any questions, feel free to ask me. If I don't have an answer, I'll certainly try to get back to you in short order with an answer, but we should be able to handle the majority of the questions that you might have.
Yeah, please send those questions in, everybody, if you've got them. I do have a couple for you here already. First one, I've had customers wanting us to install an additional layer of sound mitigating underlayment underneath a floating floor that already has a pre-attached pad. Is this recommended?
That's a fantastic question, and I'm glad that question was asked, because I was going to bring that up if it did not get asked. We are getting these phone calls almost every day. And to answer the question specifically, it depends on the manufacturer. So the first thing, if you were being asked to take a click floating system that has a pre-attached underlayment, and they're wanting to install it, or wanting to install another underlayment on top of a substrate and then put this product on top of that, the potential risk is creating too soft of a cushion, if you will. And if you get too much vertical movement, there is a potential for the click locking systems to disengage or even possibly break. So there are a few manufacturers out there that are allowing their products to, those types of products to be installed over certain types of additional mitigation systems. There are some that are not. So you need to be very specific in terms of what product is being requested. But do keep in mind that through the years of testing, and this is something that kind of is a little bit of a pet peeve for me, but just knowing how much testing I've done over the years and working with the labs, we've tested a lot of different products with pre-attached underlayments over the top of other underlayment systems. There is a perception out in the market that, excuse me, if you have a 1 millimeter sound underlayment attached to the product, and you put another one on top of the subfloor, together you're going to double your ratings. Well, that doesn't happen. In fact, of all the testing that we've done, we do see from time to time where you might get a 1 or 2 point gain, and that's it. And once in a while, we will also see the value actually drop. We did one just not too long ago where we got a 50 IIC with a particular product, and then we put another 1 millimeter thick underlayment down on the substrate, installed the same product over the top of it, and it actually went down to a 49. So it's a weird science. Don't ask me, I'm not an engineer, but there is a misunderstanding there. So just be cautious and be sure to check with the manufacturer before you should do that.
All right, kind of in a similar vein here, I've heard that by adding an additional pad, it will double the sound ratings. Is that true?
We just answered it.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good.
All right. Generally, all I see on manufacturers' technical data sheets are the STC and IIC numbers. Will manufacturers provide the reports you showed, listing the subfloor and ceiling assemblies, and if so, how do I go about getting them?
Yeah, we will certainly give them out if we have an architect or an end user or somebody that wants to see our test report. Sure, all I have to do is call technical services, our customer service, and tell us what specific product it is that you're looking for, and we can provide that data. I have called around to underlayment manufacturers or sound mitigating underlayment manufacturers. I've called competitors, and I have never been denied a report, at least in the last 5 or 6 years that I can recall. But you do need to call their customer service. Some of the customer service people may not know exactly what you're talking about, so you'll have to just let them know specifically what you're looking for. And if they say, I don't know, ask them to pass you off to tech services. And I'm sure that shouldn't have any issue getting those reports.
Awesome. Looks like that's the last of our questions. I don't see any more coming in here. Have any questions after Dave? I'm sure you're totally fine with people calling you up and asking you questions.
Yeah, absolutely. This is kind of a funny slide here. One of my colleagues stuck in there. So we have a gentleman here by the name of Arthur Clark, of course myself, Dave Altman. I'm the Director of R&D and Tech Services. Feel free to call or send an email. Email is usually a little bit better. But feel free to reach out to either one of us, or you can call our customer service at any time. And most of them are fairly well versed in being able to get you the information. They may not understand the test methods and the process that well, but they should not have any issue getting you the reports. But by all means, if you reach out to Arthur Clark or myself, we would definitely get that out to you rather quickly.
It looks like we have one last-minute question actually coming in here. If a glue-down product with a sound rating using an adhesive that states it provides a different sound rating, does that increase the rating?
I'm not sure if I understand the question. Can you read that again?
If it is a glue-down product with a sound rating, does using an adhesive that states that it provides a different sound rating increase the rating?
Well, I'm not sure if I understand it 100%, but there are some adhesives out on the market that are designed to be an adhesive and to also offer some sound properties. So I think that is the question. Again, it has to do with the subfloor ceiling assembly. So if they're giving you a delta, then you'll have an idea as to what that particular product will do with and without. Well, hopefully. But you need to really understand what that subfloor ceiling assembly is. For example, if you have an LVT product and you have an adhesive, and they're saying in the literature that you're going to get an IIC of a 62, just throw a number out there, and I'm just talk about IIC for a second. You need to understand what was that installed over, because you're not going to get a 62, which is the standard adhesive with an LVT dryback, 2.5 or 3.2 LVT, over the top of a 6-inch concrete slab without a subfloor ceiling assembly. That certainly wouldn't happen. But I hope that answers the question.
Hope so too. All right. I'm going to wrap things up here then. On behalf of FCICA, thank you, Dave, for presenting today's webinar, sponsored by Metroflor. This webinar's recording and handouts will be available on FCICA's Member Center, as well as on this education platform. Certified installation managers who have attended this webinar on the education platform can now navigate to their education credit profile to submit their credit. If you're looking for other continuing education opportunities, you can access previous webinars by navigating to the courses section and clicking the On Demand button, and visit our training resources page on the FCICA website for our other offerings. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.